Okay. First, I will introduce some concepts from sociological literature. These are the terms which will be found in textbooks of sociology when you read on work. Guild is an organization of those people who are engaged in the similar kind of activity. And they are all outside the agriculture. Activities done outside the agriculture have a certain organization. And these guilds are organizations of all the people involved in the same kind of craft. And they deal with all kinds of activities connected with the craft. For example, there can be a guild of blacksmiths, guild of blacksmiths will consist of persons who are expert in blacksmithing, more experienced, more mature workers, some relatively less mature workers, some new recruits, apprentices. And this guild will also include those people, you can call them masters, who will arrange for the money required for promotion of blacksmithing. There are lots of people involved in blacksmithing. There are some people who will arrange for money, some experts, some senior level of blacksmiths, some blacksmiths who have the ability to diversify into new areas or to meet the requirements of new industry. In the process of industrialization, requirements of industry are also changing. Blacksmiths who made simple agricultural implements cannot make railway lines. So they also need to do some kind of research and development activities. Then somebody who will connect blacksmiths, group of blacksmiths to market, to common people. And all these people will comprise the guild of blacksmiths. For all kinds of crafts activities, you must have similar kinds of organizations. There were also organizations of traders. Traders Guild. So guilds were guilds of artisans, craftsmen, and also of traders who organized business, trading, and who moved between rural and urban areas, one city, another city, and sometimes one country and another country. Gisbert says that the activities of the guilds were not confined to economic activities only. They also performed several religious and political activities. It's like in Mumbai, several industries organize their own Satyanarayan ki puja. So different guilds were associated with different sects and denominations of Christianity, and they organized religious activities. They also took up social action or voluntary activities or welfare activities in the interest of the workers and society. All those who were connected with this, there was some kind of hierarchy too. A new recruit does not have the same power, knowledge, resources, money, connection with society, participation in religious activities, and access to market which an experienced senior person has or the master has. So there was some kind of hierarchy. And these, what characterizes guild from other forms of organizations of work, that guilds were independent units, oftentimes less hierarchical than other forms of organizations of work, and they took up specific activities of their craft or trade, merchants guilds and blacksmith guilds, like that. Laissez-faire is another central concept of sociology of work which is connected with capitalism. According to this, two things which characterize the idea of laissez-faire is logic and interest. Gisbert says that according to laissez-faire idea, it's an idea, it's not a reality anywhere. Nothing is reality, no sociological concept is a reality anywhere. It's only an idea through which we try to understand a given reality. According to this idea, society consists of a large number of, Gisbert says hordes, H-O-R-D-E-S, a large number of individuals who remain disorganized. Society consists of a horde of disorganized individuals, and all of them work independently to maximize their own interests, and everyone is rational, logical. Actually, according to laissez-faire philosophy, that society will be best in which there are no governmental or social restrictions on economic activities. This is the principle of capitalism. What is capitalism? Capitalism is based on competition. And the idea of profit. If everyone in society, if everyone is permitted to maximize his or her welfare without any binding from society, then the welfare of society will be at the maximum level. If all the individuals maximize their welfare individually, they will maximize their welfare individually. They will be governed by their own personal interests. Since they are all logical people, since human beings are rational, logical, and everyone is calculating what is in the best interest of him or her, then that society will be the best society. The other day we were talking of equality of opportunities and equality of outcome. A society in which there is equality of opportunity and no government interacts, no government interference in political or economic organization of people, that society is believed to be governed by the concept of laissez-faire, and its form of organization will be capitalism. Rational, private, competitive, governed by self-interest. Some other varieties of capitalism can be individual capitalism or state capitalism. But this is what laissez-faire means. What is not laissez-faire is when a institution of society, when government or the political institutions of society decide or interfere in the working of the market or economic activities. If you leave economic activities to be free, let people decide, let consumers decide what they want, and let prices be fixed by the manufacturers, and let the government not interfere at all. Government has no role to play in deciding what should be the prices of petroleum products. It's a give and take, bargain, competition between people, consumers, producers, different consumers, different producers, competition between different manufacturing units, different companies. That society has the maximum welfare. That society is best. Capitalism is justified in our times also on the basis of this argument, that any intervention by state is not good. It's not going to promote the generalized interest of people. It's not going to maximize welfare. Only when all the individuals are free to maximize their welfare without any government intervention, that society will be best. Other organizations of work apart from capitalism are state capitalism or socialism. In state capitalist society, state itself acts as a capitalist. State may compete with other private industries, or state exists in the same capacity, exactly in the same fashion in which private industries or private organizations exist. Today you do not find examples of really operational capitalist, state capitalist or socialist economies. What you have is mixed. India from the very beginning after independence opted for a mixed economy. And Nehru was a strong advocate of that we must have the benefit of both private industry and some industry in government sector. He knew that private industry could be more efficient, and therefore from the point of view of economy of the nation, he permitted private industry to flourish on its own terms, though of course regulated by the wider socio-political, economic, constitutional framework of society. And he also wanted to establish a strong government sector industry, state industry, state enterprises. State enterprises, there were several visions of state enterprises. One, that there were several sectors of economy in which private parties were not interested in investing because there was no profit, at least in the short run there was no profit. Private industry or our industrialists, Tatas, Birlas, they were not interested in building roads, in supplying electricity, in constructing houses. in building railway lines, in shipyards. So those things, particularly infrastructure activities, in which there may be no profit in the short run, then government, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru thought that these kinds of activities must be developed in the government sector. So private and government sectors will flourish side by side. Private sector for economic growth, economic development, government sector because there will be some sectors of economy in which private parties are not interested. Government sector was also important for the reason that there are some areas, nuclear energy, defense, in which a high degree of secrecy, confidentiality of activities, research, production, safety standards have to be maintained. Defense. So in areas of defense and in such industries, energy, nuclear energy, power, defense related research, where more secrecy is needed, government must establish its own units. And the third reason was that the country was poor and the degree of inequality among people was very high. Unfortunately, the poorest countries of the world are also the most rigidly stratified countries, where the degree of inequality or the gap between the rich and the poor is very high. The degree of inequality in the developed European market economies is much less than the degree of inequality in India, Bangladesh or Pakistan. Poor countries have more inequality than the rich countries. So to bring the rich and the poor together, to create more opportunities for the poor, for the vulnerable sections of society, to create more employment for people, a different kind of program was required in which private parties would not be interested. So government wanted to establish industry in backward areas, rural areas, countryside, tribal areas. The government wanted to provide employment to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, to women, to people in the backward regions, and the private industry is more interested in profit. So the idea behind mixed economy was we will have a private sector so that our national economy grows at a fast rate, and we will have a public sector for the purpose of defense, secrecy, energy, infrastructure, and for employment creation. Maybe sometime when we say that the government institutions are making losses, this is not a new issue, and several times this issue was brought to the notice of Jawaharlal Nehru also. And Nehru's response was that yes, I know it's possible that the government industry or state sector manufacturing units will make losses, but profit making is not the only goal of government industry. There is another goal: growth, justice, equality, growth of infrastructure, employment creation. The country was so poor, 50%, 60% population of the country was living below the poverty line. So that was the response, mixed economy. In mixed, it's a different matter that gradually that mixed economy got degenerated into what we call today license and permit Raj, and became inefficient. And so the demand for opening up of the economy, and from 1990s our economy became more open and global. From license and permit Raj till late 80s to globalization and opening, more openness in organization of work. Socialism differs from state capitalism in the sense that the government in socialist countries, government of proletariats or workers, tries to collectivize means of production and stand for the generalized interests of the proletariat class, and creates condition for withering away of the government, for initiating processes which will ultimately lead to creation of a communist society in which there will be no government and everyone will contribute according to his ability and take away from society according to his needs, in which everybody will have access to all good things of society. Everybody will know everything, everyone will be expert of everything, to the extent that Karl Marx imagined a kind of society in which you are a doctor in the morning, then you are an engineer in the afternoon, you are a flute player in the evening, and you do whatever you want. Some other activity you can take up in the night, because everyone has access to all forms of knowledge. In Marx's time, there was no such super specialization or super division of labor that exists today. That was a simple division. In Marx's time, 200, 150 years ago, it was a simple division, and Marx was convinced that it was possible for everyone to learn everything from all domains of knowledge. And when everyone knows everything from all domains of knowledge, then there will be no inequality between people. There will be no landless laborer who knows nothing, and there will be no expert who knows only one thing. Everyone knows everything. Communism resembles a primitive society very much. In terms of form of social organization, the communist society will be like primitive society. There will be no king, no ministers, no government, no subjects, no elected representatives. Everybody is equally powerful. The only difference between primitive society and communist society is that primitive society exists in the stage of ignorance and communist society exists in the stage of advanced knowledge that belongs to everyone in society. As means of production, land, raw material, machine tools, money, capital, they have been collectivized. Knowledge is widely distributed among all individuals in society. Today it looks like a utopia, a dream which may never be realized, but this is what Marx thought. In textbooks, you will come across terms like work motivation, and one, I think you should read Gisbert's chapter on work. Using the theories of Brown and Elton Mayo, they try to say that motivation depends more on the socio-psychological conditions of work. Facilities, temperature, working conditions, scientific studies of motion, or purely objective ecological conditions of lab are not so important. Though they qualify by saying that unemployment is a significant factor in motivating people to work, that if they do not work to the satisfaction of their employers, they can be removed and they become unemployed. So, unemployment may be a negative motivator, but actually in Gisbert only a few lines are given. You read these things, you read Brown's ideas of, there are 3 points based on Elton Mayo. Gisbert does not give the background of this debate. The background of this debate is that at one time, around 50 years ago, there was a big debate in industry, in management circle, in social psychological circle, what determines work motivation. Why is it that some people produce more, some people produce less? What explains productivity? And in those circumstances, some people who believed in pure objectivity and scientific management processes started experimenting whether working conditions, temperature, lighting, and other environmental conditions matter. Some people believe that work can be scientifically structured. So the theory of Frederick Taylor's theory of scientific management. But social psychologists like Elton Mayo, they suggested that no, motivation does not depend on working conditions. Social psychologists made a difference between two types of motivators. One they called hygiene factors. Gisbert uses the term negative motivator for that. Hygiene factor and motivators. Hygiene means that certain minimal conditions in which people can smoothly work, temperature, light, etc., some minimum salary, that is necessary. And he called them hygiene. Hygiene means that if you do not maintain the hygienic standards, that you do not give at least this much of salary, and you do not maintain this much of temperature, if you do not maintain this much of lighting at the workplace, then the work will suffer. But further improvement in these things will not increase workers' productivity. For further development of productivity or for making people more motivated to work, you have to depend on other rewards. These other rewards are competition, praise, self-esteem, appreciation, recognition, and opportunities in which people can take risk, prove their individuality. Means the motivators are socio-psychological, from which a person feels good. And it's like if I apply this to Indian condition, then salary will be, Gisbert also says that salary is not so important. Salary is important only in the sense it's a hygiene factor. If you give only 5,000 rupees per month to a BTech qualified graduate engineer, he will not be motivated to work. That is true. So some minimum salary has to be maintained. Whatever, according to standards of society, suppose in our society that salary is 30,000 rupees per month. If you give less than 30,000 rupees per month to your engineers, they will not be sufficiently motivated. But it's a hygiene factor. If you double the salary, if in place of giving 30,000, you give 60,000, their motivation, their morale, their commitment will not increase, productivity will not increase. You give them 6 lakh rupees per month, their productivity will not increase in that ratio. If in place of 30,000 you are giving 6 lakh per month, their motivation is not going to increase. But if you give them other kinds of rewards, or to those people whom you give other kinds of rewards, appreciation, praise, freedom, autonomy, opportunity to accept challenges, more adventure, threat, opportunity to prove themselves, something connected with say self-esteem and actualization, then work will improve. ठीक है ना? So, this is, I think you can, these are simple points you can read from Gisbert. I wanted to say something on which there is no discussion in Gisbert or in textbooks of sociology. To understand Marxist theory, and later on in the next class, I will shift to religion. And one link between work and religion is alienation, the concept of alienation of Karl Marx. What is surplus? Using Marx's original writing, if somebody is interested in understanding the concept of surplus as expressed by Karl Marx, then he or she must read a few pages from the Capital. Capital published in 3 big volumes from Progress publication. We have a set of this in our library. Sometime when you are free, just out of curiosity, you can read a few pages from there. Marx's concept of surplus was this, that in a market, of course, he believed in labor theory of value, and he believed that for production, what you need is an organizer or a capitalist who own means of production, and a worker who owns labor. Means of production cannot produce anything, and workers alone cannot produce anything. If workers alone could produce something, then why should workers come to the market to sell their labor power? Can construction workers on their own, without having access to tools and techniques of production, raw material, money, bricks, cements, iron, paint, can produce anything? Nothing. Laborers cannot produce anything. The capitalists who own means of production also cannot produce anything. So, in a market situation, both of them have to come together. But according to Marx's understanding of the work, a capitalist hires a capitalist hires a worker for X hours. This is X. A worker is working for X hours. What is X? Depending on the conventions, traditions, laws, welfare laws of society, this X may range from, say, as 8 to 20 hours of work. It's not unimaginable. Before the passing of labor laws, workers were so exploited that the capitalists or the owners of means of production employed them day and night. Even now in several parts of the world, in several parts of your own country, you can find that people are working continuously in private sector, in ceramics, in textile, in garments industry. You find, you go to Ghaziabad, Noida, Surat, Ahmedabad, you find that people are working very hard for 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, because there are a lot of unemployed people around. They are forced to accept these conditions of work. Even when there are labor laws and workers permit for 8 hours, the concept of surplus applies. So, people are working for X hours, and for working for X hours, they get the wages W. According to Marx, in x minus t hours, in this part of the work, x minus t hours, the workers are able to contribute to production by an amount, if their contribution CON during this time x minus t, during x minus t hours, they make a contribution CON which is actually equal to the wages they are receiving. Where does this part T, what happens in T? In T hours. In T hours also they are working. Workers are working for X hours and getting wages W. Now Marx says that in capitalist industry, in time less than X, say in time X minus T, they are able to contribute to production process by an amount CON, and this CON is equal to W. In this part, in the remaining part, then they are producing something extra. Surplus, this is surplus. So if you broadly divide your capital into two parts, capital equal to fixed capital, referring to means of production and raw material, fixed capital, and variable capital, which refers to wages. Total capital of society, or total capital of an industry, or total capital with a capitalist is equal to sum of two things, fixed capital plus variable capital. Fixed capital refers to money value of machine tools, raw material, land, etc., etc., instruments of production. And variable capital refers to wages that are given to workers. Now since, and because Marx believes in labor theory of value, that the difference in capital now and capital then arises only because of the fact that some laborers have worked on the means of production. See, if you take cotton worth say 50 lakh, and from this cotton cloth has been produced which is worth 55 lakh. According to Marxist theory, the difference between the two, value of the cotton and value of the cloth, 5 lakh, difference of 5 lakh. This 5 lakh of difference has been added to this by the fact that workers or laborers have worked on cotton or tools of production to convert cotton into cloth. This is Marx. Many people have criticized labor theory of value and Marxist theory, but that's another issue. I am just trying to illustrate how Marxist ideas work. So for Karl Marx, a capitalist hires a worker for X hours, give him wages W, which is equivalent to workers' contribution in X minus T hours. And this contribution to production during the remaining hours or T hours is retained by the capitalist. This is surplus. So what will happen? If capital is fixed capital plus variable capital, then since a part of the variable capital has been retained, a part of the production has been retained by the capitalist and added to fixed capital, that becomes capitalist capital. So as time passes, with time, capital rises, the money value of goods and the money value of capital goods, infrastructural goods, industrial capital goods, fans, light bulbs, computers, buildings, furniture, the money value and machine equipment, machine tools. In Indian society, value of all these things has gone up. The total capital, with time capital rises, proportion of fixed capital rises, proportion of fixed capital in total capital rises, proportion of variable capital falls. For some time in absolute value, variable capital may also rise if the economic development is very fast or rate of accumulation is very fast. Otherwise, in the long run, it's like suppose the worth, total capital in a textile industry in 1960 200,000 crores, and the breakup capital, total capital of textile in India in 1960, and at that time 100,000 crores exists in the form of machinery, raw material, machinery, land, and 100,000 crores existed in the form of wages. In 2012, you will find that the total capital has increased to 100,000 crores. This is the meaning of growth of textile sector in the country. But during this time, the composition of capital has also changed. Today, out of 400,000, this fixed capital is close to 350,000 crores. When the total value of land, building, raw materials, computers, automation, everything, instruments of production is 350,000 crores, and the variable capital or the money that is going to workers in the form of wages is only 50,000 crores. According to Karl Marx, this is the law of capitalist accumulation. Marx may not be completely right, but you see this thing happening everywhere around.
Does this mean that the number of workers are decreasing with time?
It can mean that also. Today you find that everywhere in modern industry, the number of workers is falling. Some 20 years back, the total capital, the total worth, those who graduated from here in 70s, if they come, they will be amazed to see so much development on the campus. New buildings, beautiful roads, parks, more modernized labs, and so much of achievement all around. Research, number of students graduating from the institute, there is so much of development. This is what rate of capital accumulation has done. Now, from Marxist perspective, there is the other side of the coin also. According to Karl Marx, affluence and poverty are two sides of the same coin. On the other side, what is happening, that when the institute worked with regular employees, a regular employee would be getting a decent amount of salary and health facilities, leave travel concession, many of them reasonably good houses on the campus. But today, the workers are exploited. A mess worker, institute will say we are not bothered about what the mess, there will be some agreement in the contract that the contractors must pay minimum wages to the workers. But then the responsibility of paying minimum wages, which may be as low as 4,000 or 5,000 rupees, falls on the shoulders of the contractors. And we know that in a corrupt system like ours, on paper they will ask workers to sign for 5,000 rupees, but actually pay 2,000. So institute is developing. I am not criticizing institute. I am only making this a case to illustrate what Marx had in mind. And reality, concepts are concepts. Realities and concepts do not always match. But if we analyze this reality using Marxist framework, then we will say that the development of the productive forces of the institute has the other dirty side of marginalizing the worker. A worker is becoming proletarian. A worker of yesteryears was getting a decent salary, he had some say, he had power. You could not easily suspend him or terminate him. He was a powerful person, he had legal protection. Today's worker gets 2,000 rupees, does not have legal protection, he can be hired and fired by the contractor anytime, does not have facilities of health and leave travel concession and other facilities which accrue to regular workers. Now same, if you project the similar kind of situation, you go to State Bank of India and ask your seniors, institute alumni who graduated 20 years back, what was the condition of State Bank of India here? There was no computer, there was no air conditioner. And the bank did not look so good, so clean. It was a small place, very congested kind of, where some people sat, and not so efficient either. Today, the value of things kept in State Bank of India, the value of the building, value of the space, value of the furniture, everything has gone up several times. The business has gone up several times. If you calculate what proportion of that business is going to the salary, to the pockets of the workers as salary component, that has reduced. So sometime this need not be 50,000, this may be more than 100,000, but according to Marx, in proportionate terms, the capitalist society has a tendency, he calls it iron law of capitalist accumulation. According to iron law, which cannot be ever written with, you cannot ever escape, you can never escape the iron law of capitalist accumulation. And according to iron law of capitalist accumulation, capital will rise, proportion of fixed capital will rise fast, and proportion of variable capital will decline. That means temporarily sometime when there is a rapid industrialization or rapid economic development, for some time condition of the working class may also be improved, but in the long run the condition of working classes will deteriorate and they will become more pathetic. At that time Marx uses the term proletarian for them. In Hindi, sarvhara, somebody who has lost everything. That stage of development, when society has developed, society has much advanced, but the workers of society have become sarvhara. They have lost money, they have lost confidence, they have lost skills, they have lost legal protection, they have lost employment. Fast they are losing employment. Hiring of and firing of workers is so common. At that time they become proletariats. They are poor, suffering from malnutrition, suffering from high infant mortality and child mortality, suffering from all kinds of problems, and they are alienated. I will explain this concept of, this will be our link between sociology of work and sociology of religion.